It'll be a few seconds before everybody gets connected and this live stream is distributed out to YouTube, to Facebook, and to Periscope. Today, it is a special update on the new travel restrictions and new travel rules that are happening with respect to Canada. So if you have questions about travel and being able to travel, I just want to give a little bit of update. It's interesting because there have been changes. And when I announced, hey, let's do this update on travel restrictions, and let's do it on Saturday because there's been some new notifications coming out. The reality is that then the government kind of did a little bait and switch and took off some of the good, helpful things. And so, that we could have actually relied upon, which is a little bit frustrating. So it looks like people are now connecting in, which is great. And I wanted to do it today on a Saturday because lots of people have time off. Now, I'm going to caveat this special episode on the new travel restrictions. I'm going to put a caveat out there to all of you. I do not have all of the answers, but the goal today is to continue pointing you guys to the direction that you need to go to get information, at least as much as possible. Then, and often it's the government website, we can read the orders in council, but they don't always translate into the program delivery instructions for IRCC, and the Canada Border Service Agency hasn't been as open and forthright with the resources they're relying upon, even though we've tried to request some of the resources copies so that we can know how to advise our clients. But today's a special episode, as you've seen, and I do have some people tuning in. So from Facebook, and we have YouTube. So make sure, guys, that you please let me know where you're tuning in from. As always, we've got Ralph here, who is one of my most faithful followers. He says hi, and Ralph's up in Edmonton. Susan says hi. She's tuning in on YouTube, which is great. Mahesh is here, tuning in from India. And God bless you as well, Mahesh. Great to have you with us. John says, hey, Mike, your glasses are cool. I think these are new ones. You know what? These glasses, when I'm up late working, I've had contacts for so many years that eventually you reach a stage where you just have to give your eyes a break. And because I'm so blind and my prescription is so strong, it really doesn't make sense for me to have nice, chic, square lenses because, my actual square frames because my lenses are so thick. So anyways, that's funny. Thanks for pointing that out, Jode. Okay, Atik says, how are you doing today? So actually I clicked on Sanjay. Sanjay says, hey, Mark, Sanjay from Dubai. Awesome. And then we have Atik who says, how are you doing today? I'm doing great, Atik. Let's see what else we have here. Other people are saying, hey, glasses. Yes, indeed. Okay, Karan says, hey, Mark from Delhi, give us good news. Okay, I'm not sure if I can give you good news, but I can give you the most recent news. And we're still in a lot of holding patterns, but I'm going to show you a couple neat things. Okay, so we're going to go forward, post where you're listening from. Shan is in Trinidad, and I'm trying to get everybody up here. Of course, Ralph is in Edmonton. Thanks for joining, Ralph. We've got Bala in Toronto. And if you see that you've got friends who you think also might like to receive some updates and notifications regarding the travel restrictions, please share and let them know that this is going live. And we're going to do it probably for about an hour from 1 to 2 p.m. And I'm going to do my best to answer questions. And where I do not have answers, I'll let you know. But we'll try to collectively see what we can do. All right. Going forward, Ife is from Toronto. It's good to see you on a Saturday as well, Ife. Okay, and we're cruising down through here. Nads is saying hi from Bangladesh. Hi, Nads. Good to have you join. And we've got Prakash as well from Mumbai. Lishan here says, hi, Mark, your suggestions is too helpful for us. Well, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be helpful. And this is actually crazy because it's the third video that I've done this week. All right, let's see who else we have. We've got Anoop who's tuning in from Dubai. And guys, just to clarify, the reason why I do this shout out to everybody that's tuning in, there's a reason behind it. The reason I do that is because it takes a long time for people to receive the actual feed in their YouTube channel or on their Facebook page. And so it's really important, or in Periscope. So I'm trying to give people enough time to be able to tune in. And that's why I do these shout outs to people. And it's pretty cool to see where people are tuning in from. At least for me it is. I'm not sure if it is for you guys, but if you guys like to see and you think it's cool, that I'm actually giving a shout out to people, just give me a thumbs up or just give me a shout out and let me know if you actually like this. Because obviously I don't want to do things that are annoying people, but at the same time, there is a reason why I do things. So that's why I do the shout outs. So let's see who else we've got here. Anoop is in, Anoop, we've got you from Dubai. We gave you a shout out. And then we've got Gagan Deep. He's looking for his housekeeping job in hospital, good for PR. Gagan, I think any hospitals are looking for people, but it doesn't quite work that way in terms of getting special treatment for PR, not at this stage. Okay, and we have Pedro from Lisboa. Bem-vindo, Pedro. Muito bom vê-lo. Ouvi-lo. Ou ler a mensagem que deixaste aqui. It's good to have you here. I love people. Eu tenho tantas saudades de Portugal. Eu esperava que dia eu volto para a minha segunda terra. Okay, all right, that's good, Pedro. I'll stop talking Portuguese there as badly as I speak it. Okay, Prakash is in Mumbai. We've got German representation at ABE, and some of you are back, and I really appreciate you guys following back. It's great to see people that I'm familiar with. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit more. So hopefully you guys are saying where you're tuning in from. We've got Eric up in Edmonton as well. Great to have you here, Eric. We've got our U.S. contingent. Rohit is down in Connecticut. Hope you're staying safe and well. We know that the U.S. has been the hardest hit of all, and we hope that you're staying safe and well during this COVID crisis that we're experiencing. All right, hi to you, Ravi. Good to have you joining. And let's see here. Oh, we've got, I love when people have these creative names. So Metal Only 100. Hello, everybody from Calgary. Hello to you too. And I know Igor is up there, so a big shout out to Igor. And I am just wondering, I'm waiting to see if maybe Susan, my associate, is going to be able to join me. She's kind of our travel expert, I guess, if you will, within the firm. Now, obviously, I'm up to date with most everything, but she's kind of the one that's really dived into and focused on it. So if we can get Susan to join in here, she's going to hopefully dial in maybe on Skype. But if she's able to connect, we'll have her join us. Otherwise, I will just go forward on my own. Okay, let's see. We've got Shivam is in India. And let's see who else we have here. Anoop is in Dubai. Amrinder is also India. We've got Rajiv is Abu Dhabi, which is great. This unknown person from Qatar says, hey, Mark, new looks. Hey, it's Saturday. I've got to mix it up. All right. And then people that are asking questions, hold off for a little bit. Okay. And I'm just scrolling down here because I want to identify people that are tuning in maybe for the first time from some unique locations. So Mr. Sam Gaming is tuning in from Manali in India. Great. We've got our Cameroon representation from Nana. Awesome. And I have to give Alamide a little bit of a shout out. Good vibes to you too, my friend. Okay, we got Omar is tuning in from the UK. That's great. And we also have another Edmonton person, Harshit. Thanks for joining, Harshit. Okay, I think we're just about at the stage where we're going to jump in and start answering some questions. Let's see. Nishal is in Mississauga. Sean's laughing their face off so hard they're crying, apparently. We have an unknown person from Peru. Okay. And Eric, he says, looking forward to the Canadian settlement course. Yes, I'm super excited about it. It's going to be so awesome. And I've been thinking about all the different ways and different things that we can continue adding to the course. And so if you guys are looking to add, and I guess it's probably a good idea to give a little shout out. Susan hasn't quite joined me here. Now I guess I shouldn't shift my screen over until I actually open up the page. But I want to give a quick shout out. Igor can maybe post this on the group. Guys, we have our Immigration Done Better right here on the Canadian Immigration Institute site, our Canadian Settlement course. So if you click up at the link at the top here, it'll take you to the spot. 5 days left. We're going to do a free webinar all about Canadian settlement and help you avoid some of those horrific experiences that others have experienced when they are coming to Canada and are not prepared. So you can register for the webinar by clicking on this link. sign up, you can see it asks for your name, email. Now remember, this course is ideally suited, the course itself is ideally suited for PRs, recently landed, COPR holders that have not yet landed, PR application in process. So yes, even you that are in that process. And really what I mean by that is maybe you've already got your ITA and you're at the EAPR stage, and prospective immigrants as well. But you can see here, the questions are really important because one of the most important ones is the last one that says right here, what would you like to learn most about settling in Canada? So this part right here at the very bottom. And that question is really important because it'll help us to determine what to really focus our time on. There's so much that we can cover, and there's probably more than we could ever cover in a 1 hour free webinar, but that will give us a basic starting point to cover some of the most important things. So that's on the settlement side, all right? And then I also want to show you guys one other thing here. You can also go, and I'm going to pull this up because I think to a large extent people aren't aware of that. In conjunction with this course, we are, let me just see if I can find it here. I've got a bunch right here. So I'm going to share my screen with you again. You'll see right here is our Canadian settlement course, Moving to Canada Made Easier. And this is where you can go in and you can actually join this private Facebook group. So search it up, Canadian Settlement Course. Igor can probably post it in the comments section, a link to it. But this is a great resource where you can go, and this is where we're starting to build a little bit of momentum for the actual free webinar. So you're going to log into the webinar, you're going to go here, and you're going to start posting your questions. Now, people want to join. If you want to join this group, it's just like my other private Facebook groups. You guys have to answer the question. So you can see here, if you take the time and you answer them, are you already in Canada? Have you received COPR? Why do you want to join this group? If you've answered correctly these questions, then I'll approve you. If you do not, then I'm not going to add you. But if you take the time to do it, so you can see here, these people have done it. So we will add them in. If a person asks to join and they haven't answered questions, I decline them because I need you to actually take the time to do that. And then I know that you're not some kind of a bot or something like that. So I will also, let's see, I'll approve that one. Okay, so there you go. So that's just a little quick crash course about the settlement course. And really, the free settlement webinar that I'm doing, I better go back again because make sure I've got the dates and everything lined up, guys. So if I go back here, I'm going to share my screen again with you. So you click on settlement course and you'll see here that it is on Friday, May the 8th at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So this is 8 a.m. in the morning. And I tried to do this in a way that would actually work better for people maybe that were outside of Canada. And it's really, obviously people in Canada need help with a lot of things too, that are working here, transitioning, but even more so people outside of Canada that are immigrating. So pay attention, go in here, register, and that would be awesome. Okay, so it looks like, and Igor can maybe check in with Susan. I'm not sure if she is going to be able to join us. I was kind of holding off a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to make this work regardless. So let's, we've got a great group of people that have tuned in. And without further ado, what I'd like to do here, okay, so what I'd like you to do is to start posting your questions, okay? So we'll start here. The first question, okay, so remember, ideally, we want to try to focus on questions that relate to travel restrictions and things like that. That's kind of the overview. But I do want to just jump in and start answering questions for people that have tuned in live right now. So first one, what all jobs can a foreign lawyer do in Canada before getting a lawyer's license? Well, Divya, you can do just a ton of different things. If you already have a foreign law degree, those law degrees can help you and give you background and experience to work in a lot of different areas, whether it's business, whether it's government, whether it's a number of different occupations. Within the legal field, you can work as a legal assistant, you can work as a paralegal, and those all are able with foreign law degrees. All right, good question. Okay, next one here. Okay, so this one is Surya, and he says, I'm on a work permit since the last 9 months. 2 months ago, I came for vacation and struck here okay, I came here for vacation, 2 months ago. Okay, to India, and he's stuck here due to the travel restrictions. From the day after the vacation, 1 month, he started doing, work from home. Okay, well, that's terrible, Surya. I'm so sorry about that. The reality is right now the travel restrictions have not been lifted. So this is where I want to shift gears, and I want to start off and just show you guys what we have here. So this is probably one of the most important locations that you can go, and I'll have Igor post this in the comments section, but you guys can also search for this, okay? Travel restriction measures, COVID-19 program delivery. This actually is one of the best resources that you can rely on, aside from the actual orders in council. And so in your situation, the best thing you can do as you're going through this is to look for how the travel restrictions affect you. So travel restrictions affecting foreign nationals. So if you are someone who, well, let's go back here and we'll just open this up again. I'm going to shift back to the main screen, and I'm going to pull up Surya's here. So work permit holder since the last 9 months, they went home for a vacation to India and now they're stuck. So I'm assuming, Surya, that you are a work permit holder. So if we go to the main page here, and you guys can look up this just as much as me, you are a temporary worker. You still have a valid work permit, right? And so you can see here, so it includes temporary foreign workers who were already established in Canada or who have made arrangements to come to work before the travel restrictions were put in place, which is basically March 18th. And so these foreign nationals can self-identify to airlines at the point of boarding that they are exempt under the provisions provided by representing that they have a valid work permit. So that's the case for you, okay? So travel may be considered, so here's the thing, for those who have a letter of introduction, travel may be considered to be optional discretionary if they do not have a current and active offer of employment associated with that letter of introduction and are simply planning to see what can be found in terms of work in Canada. So for people who have work permits but don't have an actual job waiting for them or an active offer or employment that they can jump into, those are obviously going to be considered to be optional or discretionary travel. And so that's one of the issues. And then it talks about, if you don't have a work permit, how you can obtain a letter. And so I'd strongly encourage that you guys look at these things, okay? Permit exempt work, they give explanations, and these are relatively new if you don't have a permit. And then it gets into permanent resident visa holders, accredited officials, protected persons, all these other areas. And so what you have to realize when you're coming to travel, that there are restrictions that are keeping, and they're not always associated directly with with the immigration rules. We are also have operating under all of this is travel for optional discretionary purposes. Oh, looks like we've got Susan. I'm super excited about this. So give me a second, and I'm gonna pull Susan in. Okay, let's see if we got her here. Hi, Susan.
Oh, hey, Mark.
Okay, I'm gonna add Susan to our mix right here. She is now officially connected.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I couldn't seem to get your attention there for a few minutes, but yeah. I could hear you saying, I don't know if Susan's going to be able to join.
Yeah, I think we're good here. It looks like we've got a couple different ones here. So we've got a big image of the person who's talking, and then I can shift it around. I'm experimenting with different views here on my
I see you large, and I see myself up in the corner.
Okay, here, let's see if we can do this. Okay, and just give me 1 second here. I'm just trying to adjust my screen, everybody, so that we both can be on the camera at the same time. And
then I'll be working blind again. I can't see your screen because there's a bit of a lag.
No, that's not a problem. So it looks like I'll flip back and forth with Susan, I think is what I'm going to do.
No
That'll be the easiest way to do it. Okay, so what we're doing is we're just going through the questions, and then I'm going to read them and pull you in. Now, just to give a little introduction to Susan here, and I'll put her image up here. So Susan is an associate with Holthe Immigration Law, and she's been at this gig for many years. And she has become, I think, as much an interest as anything to drive the ship forward on helping us to understand all of the travel restrictions, because we have many clients that are impacted by it, both corporations, individuals, families. And so Susan has taken upon herself to kind of become our resident expert on travel. And so I thought I would bring her in to provide a little bit of assistance. Okay, so here's the situation. So Surya, Susan, is on a work permit and has been for the last 9 months. Surya has actually made a decision to go back to India 2 months ago and is now stuck. So
Oh.
now they're working from home, as the company has suggested. But what are the things that are going to need to change to allow Surya to be able to come back to Canada? So Surya is an Indian national who's, I don't know what kind of work permit we have for Surya. We also don't know the type of work that Surya is doing for their company. But what are some of the factors that foreign workers are having to deal with now if they're trapped outside of Canada and want to return back to Canada?
Okay. So the first thing you have to remember is all the old rules still apply. So I'm assuming that his visa to travel back to Canada is still valid, but he would have to check that. So when he first came into Canada, he would have had a visa that expired probably coincidentally with the work permit. If he has that already, he needs to check with his employer if he's needed on site. Because some of the factors that they take into account are whether or not the person is still needed. And one of the first questions they're going to ask is, what have you been doing? And he'll say, oh, I was caught in India when the travel restrictions went on. So I've got a job. I've been working from home in India. So then they will say, well, why can't you keep on working from home in India until the travel restrictions are lifted? That's the big main issue that you're going to have to deal with. If you can get a letter from your employer saying that it's working, but not effectively, and they really need you here, that can be a factor to help you. Mark has probably already told you that the key words are non-discretionary and not optional, and nobody is defining what that means. And so the Canada Border Services officers and air personnel are trying to work that out. And there's a lot of inconsistency, as Mark has said repeatedly on these question and answer sessions. So basically, you have to prove that you have a need to come back now.
Yeah. What I'm going to do, Susan, is I'm going to flip my screen around. And I'm going to show everybody the screen here. And the reason I'm doing this is because you'll see on the link to the main site that we talked about, there's a specific section entitled "Travel for an Optional or Discretionary Purpose," and so they list specific examples. And obviously, the onus is on the foreign national to demonstrate that purpose of travel, as you can see right here. And so you can see the exemptions. So work permit holders, they still have to abide by this optional, making sure that they can demonstrate, as Susan said, that they're not applying for, like, they're not seeking entry for an optional discretionary purpose. So you can see it says here, travel for optional or discretionary purposes is broadly defined in the orders as including, but not limited to, and this is the hard part, travel for the purposes of tourism, recreation, and entertainment. Well, duh, like that's as straightforward of an answer as you could get. Obviously, if you're traveling just for holidays, no one wants you traveling all over the world in light of this COVID outbreak, okay? But you can see here, they also provide very limited information, right? Travel for the purposes of would not be considered optional or discretionary. So these are the flip side, the things that would be, you could be coming in to do: delivering economic services, maintaining the supply chain, supporting critical infrastructure, providing immediate medical care, or ensuring safety and security. People that are just transiting through Canada are also okay. Engaging in cross-border employment or shopping for essential goods, medication, basic needs. So those things, particularly in border and Indigenous communities. And then they talk about non-discretionary family reunification, which is super, super confusing. What's considered to be actual reunification, and such that it would justify being allowed in for a non-discretionary purpose. And then you can see here, entering Canada to work, and this is our friend Surya here, study or land as a permanent resident with appropriate documentation. And so there's a bunch of other things that we can get into on that front. But if you look here, there's one more link that says learn more, non-optional and non-discretionary travel, COVID-19 program delivery. So when you click on this one, there's a little bit more specific information. But guys, as you click on it and you scroll down, you can see this one was last updated May the 1st, 2020. Well, that's all great. But they had a lot of different examples to help determine, especially family reunification and some of the things that would constitute being okay, and some that are not. But now all it says here, and understand these are the program delivery instructions really for the officers to help guide them. It says that the officers should be aware that family ties will not automatically qualify the foreign national for non-optional or non-discretionary travel. And so family members will be required to show that they're not traveling for a discretionary or for an optional purpose, such as routine family travel. So when you're looking at this, basically what this comes down to, and I think a lot of you have probably read newspaper reports or seen things in the media where family members of Canadian citizens are coming to Canada and then getting turned around and sent back because they feel, look, just like Susan said, what is the purpose of you coming to Canada right now? Why is it so important? Why can you just not stay put? So that's kind of a little bit of a generic kind of overview. And so any other thoughts on that?
And then, of course, if you look at the actual order in council, this person that asked the question has a valid work permit. And so on the face of it, they should be allowed to come. But what we're bringing up are all of the other considerations that you might face when you're entering Canada.
Yes.
Or even trying to get on the airplane.
Yes. I've just pulled up another question here, Susan, and this one's from Rohit.
Yes.
And Rohit says, hi, Mark, I'm a Canadian permanent resident in Connecticut right now, looking to come back to Toronto. I hope there wouldn't be an issue with my return, as in when I decide to come back. So here, Susan, we have a permanent resident holder. So I'm assuming they have their confirmation of permanent residence. Actually, they say they're already a Canadian permanent resident. Okay, so I'm assuming this person has a PR card and they're in Connecticut right now looking to come back to Toronto. So what would you advise someone like this who's already a permanent resident and they're in the US looking to come back to Canada?
Make sure you have your PR card and to show your status. Canadians and permanent residents are allowed to enter Canada. I would ask you, are you intending to enter by yourself or with other people, and what's the status of the other people? But for you, you're allowed back in. But keep in mind, when you enter, you're going to have the 14-day quarantine period. You hear people talking about mandatory self-isolation. That's what that is. And so there's particular rules that you have to meet for that. It depends how you're getting into Canada. If you're driving, that's one thing, or if you're flying in, that's a different situation, because if you're driving, you're in your own private vehicle. If you are flying in and you have to take public transportation, actually, I'd have to double check and see what happened on that Monday on the May 1st update. It may be that you still have to wear a mask if you're taking public transportation. You have to be able to show that you can self-isolate in a place that's separate from other people, that you have already provided food and other medical necessities, that you don't have other vulnerable people living in the same home or commercial hotel where you're going to stay. You have to be able to show that. If you don't show that, then they're entitled to put you in a quarantine facility for 14 days. And you probably don't want that to happen. You probably want to be in your own place. So you need to do that pre-planning.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay, great question, Rohit. Thanks for asking that one. Okay, I'm going to shift over here. We're going to shift gears a little bit. And Abhishek is just musing here. He says, don't you think IELTS validity or others should be extended if it's about to expire? Just a thought. All right, so here's the reality. So we do know that immigration is being, well, let's just put it this way. Immigration is being kind enough to understand that in circumstances where you're getting ready to submit an application, you're running out of time, like for example, in express entry, and you can't, your IELTS is expiring. So remember, this is at an ITA stage, or you can't get your immigration medical, or you've been unable to get police certificates. They have given instructions that they will show flexibility in these circumstances, but not to actually remove a requirement, but only to delay the need to provide something. So if it's in the case of an IELTS and the validity expiring, you're going to need to make sure that you get your application submitted before it expires. When it comes to qualifying for underlying program requirements, you actually need to be able to prove it. And I understand where you're going with Abhishek. These are only valid for 2 years. And what if you're at the stage where you're getting ready to, your profile is really close to maybe those rounds of invitations dropping down to you if you're in Canada, but your IELTS is expiring and you can't renew it. Well, understand immigration at this stage has not shown a significant willingness to allow you to just submit with an expired IELTS saying that you're going to rewrite it. So we've never heard that yet at this stage. If you are having difficulty getting a medical exam or a police certificate, they've been willing to hold off on that. But the underlying qualifications for express entry, which is language, meeting the language eligibility, or for example, proving your education through an ECA, those specific things are really pillars, and they go right to the heart of eligibility. And so even when it comes to IELTS, they haven't shown a willingness to extend the validity of those documents. But, I'll tell you, if you're in a situation where you just got an ITA and your IELTS is going to be expiring, and you don't think you're ever going to get that ITA again because the points have dropped down to, let's say, 450, and you're in Canada and you don't think you're going to get it again, then I would almost be willing to take a shot at it, I'll be honest, and to provide reasons and provide an explanation and actually go back and say, look, I'm going to rewrite it as soon as I can. And I also want to give a big shout out. I can't remember where the link is, but I know in Canada, CELPIP tests, I think the first ones are starting to be scheduled here in just a few days. So language tests are starting. And in other countries, I've also heard that the language tests are starting. So what a great relief to many of you out there who are stuck in this situation. So it may be, Abhishek, that there is a place where you can write either the IELTS if you're outside of Canada, or in some cases even the CELPIP test is available outside of Canada. But I think we're going to start seeing those things open up. All right? Great question. Okay, let's go through this. And remember, guys, I'm going to tell you, right now, because this is a COVID-19, and we have our resident expert here, Susan, who's joining us. I'm going to focus on those questions first, and then Susan has to drop off because we have another client matter she has to jump onto, but I really wanted her to join us. So let's take a look here and see any things that are related to travel are going to get the definite thumbs up and be added in today. Okay, let's see here. Okay, we're going through here. Let's see here. There's a lot of questions about a lot of things. Okay, let's see what this one is. And maybe Susan can even jump in on this one too. This one's from Devant, and it says, how does the new Alberta PNP affect those who got it before the restrictions imposed and it's being processed already? Okay, wow, that's kind of a tricky one. I'm not even sure, Susan, if that's one we can tackle. How does the new Alberta PNP, I'm assuming the Alberta Opportunity Stream maybe, affect those who got it before the restrictions were imposed and it's being processed already? So one of the things that we have received with the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program is a letter advising people that they need to provide updates of their employment conditions while they're working in Canada. And so if your hours are reduced, you're working part-time, if you're actually laid off, then you have an obligation to notify the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program of those changes. And those letters have been sent out via email to all people that have been extended nominations. And it doesn't matter whether you're at the stage, like how far along you are in your actual application for permanent residence. The PNP itself, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And they have not shown to this stage a real sympathy for people who are out of work, who maybe have been laid off with a doubt as to whether or not they're going to be rehired. So there's a lot of issues that are very putting foreign workers in precarious situations. And Susan, I don't know if you heard recently and saw the news report in New Brunswick.
Yes, I did.
The position that they're taking with foreign workers. Do you want to give some thoughts on that?
I don't know if the audience
I didn't tell
knows.
them. I kept it a secret. I didn't tell them what happened in New Brunswick. But what happened? What did the news say?
Yes, so they've closed their borders to temporary foreign workers temporarily. They're just not admitting them. Even if they fit all of the immigration rules about the travel restrictions and essential purpose of travel, it's kind of an interesting thing. I was reading an article in the paper about this because, some people are saying, does New Brunswick even have the authority to do that? Because this is really the sort of thing that the federal government decides. And, they have been deciding with all these orders in council about who's allowed in and out, who's allowed in Canada or not. And now we have a province who's making their own rules. So there's even a question about, is it enforceable? But who wants to be standing on the doorstep of the airport and trying to convince an officer? Like, people don't want that, right? Yeah. And honestly, I haven't heard how long it's going to be in effect. Have you, Mark?
Yeah, I haven't actually. At this stage, this has been somewhat of a, well, how do you describe it? It's been somewhat, although it's kind of released with a little bit of a splash. We really haven't had a lot of information on what they're intending to do and for how long. We've started to see that in some provinces they're talking about staged, return to normal plans. And so we're hoping.
In Alberta, some things are starting back to normal on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I even saw in Alberta that there were some discussions about, although I don't know the education, the Ministry of Education is fully on board with this, but there have been some discussions about potentially even opening school a little bit early for schools. But then you've got the teacher associations and everything that come into play. So it's quite an interesting world. All right.
And so I'll just say, in case the audience doesn't know, the official government orders for all the countries except the U.S. are in effect until June 30th. And the ones that are particularly for the U.S. are in effect until later on in May, approximately the 22nd. I'd have to double check the exact date. It might be the 21st. So you need to watch the news to see what's going to happen. So it's not as though they're in effect indefinitely. Somebody's going to have to make a decision as the provinces start to reopen about the travel restrictions. And that's 2 months from now, and 2 months does go by pretty quick.
All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, Susan, is I know your time, we're just about up here for time with you. Yeah. I'm going to have you chime in on one it looks to me like a lot of the questions are about the processing of immigration applications. And I was scrolling through here, and so you've given us a really, really good overview of what we need to do in terms of the basic understandings. What I want to do is I'm going to pull up one last question here, and I'm going to focus on you here. So this question is actually from Afroza. And Afroza, this is something that we see a lot of, and it doesn't necessarily tie directly to the travel restrictions, but it's something that we see a lot. So Afroza says, my parents and family were refused a visitor visa last year. Any suggestions how they can apply to come here? I'm a student here, and I have a 5-month-old baby.
Oh.
And I know that's a tough one. And the reality is, Afroza, one strike, it's even twice as hard or 3 times as hard to get something approved the second time. But obviously, maybe the baby, I don't know if the baby was something that you'd indicated the first time when those refusals took place, or if this is something new. But any thoughts on that, Susan?
Well, ordinarily, the first thing we do is an ATIP to find out the detailed reasons why not. But I don't know if Mark has said this on a different live Q&A. We're getting some messages that are saying you're going to get your answer to the access to information file records in 1 year. Yeah. Some people are getting those. It's supposed to be 30 days. Yeah. Now, actually, our firm has been lucky. We've gotten some recently, but they were all put out just before all of these serious restrictions. So we got in under the wire. You want to look at the letter. And like if you came to me, what I would do, and we couldn't get an ATIP, I'd look at the letter. I'd want to see a copy of the application form, because we know that most people are refused because they can't show that they're going to leave Canada by the end of the period authorized for their stay. That's a mouthful, but it's like a quote from the regulations. And so a lot of people don't quite understand that they need to show their family connections, their business connections, their property connections to the home country, because depending on the country, many of the Canadian immigration officials take the default stance that Canada is so great, nobody is ever going to want to leave. Yeah. Really. Yes. I mean, it is a wonderful country. I love living here. I love helping people come here. But that's not necessarily a proper default option. No, even in what are so-called third world countries, people have vibrant, happy, economically secure lives. And that's what you want to show on these applications, to show your connections there. You want to show your travel history, if they've ever traveled to other countries and returned. So you show that they, assuming that they did follow the immigration rules there and didn't overstay, the courts have said that's one of the best indicators of your future immigration behavior, is if you followed rules before. The baby, unless the baby has health problems, I don't think that's going to really make it an essential family visit. Now, you're a student, so you're falling in the category of foreign national having immediate family members come. And that the details about what counts has been all over the place. But a more recent one, which might have been deleted on the May 1st update, was that if you were coming to live with your foreign national family member for the duration of the COVID crisis, then that could be considered essential. But if you're coming for a christening, if you're coming for just to see the new baby, they probably don't count that as essential. Do you have a partner? Is anybody else here to help you with the baby? All the daycares are closed. Maybe you've got an essential reason that way. You just need to really explore all the possibilities. Now, they weren't even accepting visitor visas until April 29th. I did check on the 30th and there wasn't an update, but I didn't check yesterday. Did you, Mark, to see if there was an update?
No.
Yeah, so it sounds like we'd have to check to see if they put on new dates, but there's nothing wrong with preparing a thorough application and getting it in the queue so that when they are processing them, maybe all you need is an update and to get processed.
Great. Excellent. Well, Susan, I think we're just into overtime here for you. So,
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. And we'll definitely have Susan come back on again to share insight. Thanks so much, Susan. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was nice to see you. Bye now.
Take care. All right. So we'll let Susan drop off there, which is great. So that's kind of fun to add people in. Susan is very thorough, as you can see, and she really is very thoughtful, and she really takes great care in how she responds to questions. And she's, what can I say? She's just very thorough, and that's why I'm just so grateful that she's a part of our firm. All right, let's continue down. Now, obviously, the COVID questions are like the travel questions are they're far fewer than the ones that are generic in nature. So I'm going to open it up and I'm just going to start firing off as many answers as I can to try to get through as many of your questions as possible. So thanks for your patience. So many of you have been posting questions. And so now let's shift gears and let's kind of tackle whatever's thrown at me, which tends to be most of these, you guys. So, all right. So let's see. So Nana says, well, maybe put it right here. I think that's probably easiest to put it. It says the continuous selection of CEC candidates, does it mean the total threshold decreases in general? Yeah, the reality is when it comes to rounds of invitations, because at this stage there have not been as many language testing options available for people, nor the ability to get educational credential assessments, it means that fewer and fewer candidates have been entering the pool. And when fewer candidates enter the pool, that means that when they there are when they have only Canadian experience, Canada draws people that have been in for a long time who have had lower scores than the traditional rounds of invitations we've seen, which have been often above 470. People that are now as low as 455, who've been sitting in that pool for a long time, are now being pulled out. So it is causing downward pressure on the actual the round of invitation level, the CRS pass mark. And so we're not sure what's going to happen. The last draw was a PNP only, and it wasn't CEC. And now that we're having more tests, it could be that we're going to have a big jump right back up if they decide to do a federal skilled worker draw, because a lot of people, there's been no one drawn outside of Canada. And when that happens, it means the ranking that gets through is going to be higher and higher and higher. Okay, great question, Nana. Okay. Okay, Let's see here. Now remember, the key is to ask questions that are going to be of pretty general nature. Addie says, about the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, how easy is it to get a job offer precisely as an environmental scientist or engineer? It isn't easy to get any of those jobs. The reality is it's an employer-driven process, and making a connection with those employers is often very, very challenging. And so the answer is it's tough. Okay. Harjit says, I have to submit the proof of sibling relationship, but I have my mother's name spelling mistakes on my birth certificate, passport, and my brother's birth certificate. Should I submit an affidavit? Absolutely, Harjit. You gotta explain it. But I understand after working for Indian nationals, especially, your civil status documents are horrific. They're often all messed up with letters missing, names switched around. And so I have found generally that IRCC does show mercy to you. But understand that when you're going through this process, if there are inconsistencies that you see, boy, an officer is going to see them too. So make sure you do go out of your way to explain it in detail. All right. Okay, next question here. Let's see who we have next. Oh, now I didn't realize I could expand this view here. Let's see here. Okay, let's see if I can find another question here. Faria says, if our COPR expires as we could not land due to travel restrictions, how long might it require to get an extension from IRCC? And thanks in advance. Faria, we don't know right now. I hope that you've taken the steps to submit a web form notifying them that you want to travel, but due to travel restrictions, you can't travel before the expiry of your COPR. So in those circumstances, when you have submitted that, that's giving you a little bit of insurance to know that they will offer you a new confirmation of permanent residence. But in terms of how long that's going to take, wow. First, we need to get through these travel restrictions, the border closures, and the airlines returning back to normal before they start to issue these, because they don't want, obviously, this influx of people coming into Canada, even now, even if they are having holders of confirmation of COPRs, those confirmations of permanent residence, even now, they don't want to have this flood of people coming in when there are maybe restrictions in jobs that are available. So they're waiting for the dust to settle with all of this COVID-19 craziness. And then hopefully things will move back to a gradual, staged normal. And when you have fewer officers and not able to actually get on and assist with processing applications, it's going to mean that there's lengthier times. All right. Okay, next one. Isan says, I've given my fingerprints on February the 5th. Now I'm waiting for a medical exam. Can you please tell me how much time it will take? I applied in the SIMP job offer stream. So Isan, we just don't know. We do know that medicals are being completed in some locations. Panel physicians are opening up again. But we've also heard rumors that IRCC has told others to not issue medical exams. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. So as far as timing, that's not something that I can tell you. We're just in a wait and see mode. Okay. All right, let's go here. Okay, this is an interesting one. Vib says, hey Mark, you told earlier you would be making separate video for legal professionals. When can we expect that? I don't even remember saying that, Vib. You have to clarify that a little bit more. I'm not quite sure what the legal professionals is. Understand that I am going to be doing a webinar that's all on settling in Canada. And we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things in that settlement course. And for those who are tuning in a little bit late, this Friday, right here, May 8th at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, I'm doing a free webinar on Canadian settlement. And this webinar is going to form a part of a course that I'm going to be offering to help people as they transition to their new life in Canada. It's live, and you can see the countdown 5 days away, and you can click on this link to register. In order to access it, the easiest way to do it is just to go to the Canadian Immigration Institute website, and then once you're there, you can then, and I'm going to close this out, once you're there, you can then click on Canadian Settlement Course right up here at the top, and it will take you to the place where you can where you can actually register for the webinar. Okay, just a little update because I know some of you have jumped in a little bit later. All right, so continuing on here with our fun and enjoyment. Okay, this is an unknown person through Facebook that are in Kuwait. I applied for an outside family sponsorship. Still approval not come. I can travel to Canada? No. So right now, one of the biggest things that we do know about reunification of family, and remember, although the definition of a family member definitely includes a spouse, and if you have a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, the travel, at least the Order in Council, does authorize individuals to be able to travel. So the travel restrictions don't apply to you. But understand, you still have to meet the definition of entry that is non-discretionary or non-optional. And I hate these double negatives because it's so confusing that basically you can't come in for a discretionary or optional purpose. And if you're already living in your country and you haven't yet settled in Canada, you have to come up with some pretty humanitarian and compassionate-like considerations in order to be able to have a family member come. But all of the same original immigration rules still apply. You still have to, if you need a visa, you still have to obtain one. If you are, if you're coming from a country that doesn't, you still need to be able to have an ETA and be able to board the plane. And there are other restrictions as well. So be aware of that. So yeah, it's the reality is it's probably not the case that you're going to be able to travel as long as these travel restrictions are in place. All right. Okay, let's see here. This one is from Josh. And Josh says, my file is under process since November 2018. Oh my goodness, are you serious? That is an eternity. That's a long time. Okay, every time I try to get an update, it says, waiting on update from immigration officer. Who should I contact to? Well, Josh, the first thing you do, obviously, is the call center. Now, we do know that they are starting to open that call center up again. What is the number? 1-888-242-2100. I think it is. I should know. I used to give it all the time when I was on the border, when people had questions, when I was working as an officer. But that toll-free number is often the place that you call. If you're outside of Canada, it's a call that, well, you have to kind of work through the restrictions because that toll-free number is only available in Canada. Then the other thing we always indicate is the access to information request, an ATIP request, to obtain the GCMS notes to get the history. But as Susan alluded to just before she departed, some people are getting notifications that it's going to take a full year to get an access to information request released, which is insane. It's crazy. But that's the world we're in. So those are really the only two mechanisms that you have. If you're in Canada, you also have the ability to go to or to reach out to an MP. But even in Canada, a lot of the offices are closed. We're practicing social distancing. And the ability to reach out to your MP and ask for assistance, that is the other option that I normally turn to, subject to whatever restrictions are in place in each province. I should have probably, excuse me, gotten some water, but anyways, we're just about done here. Okay, so going forward, let's see here. Okay, well, I'll respond to this one, Olivia. So Olivia says, my brother submitted a false document to Canada 2 years ago. He was caught and they said they would inform IRCC. So he submitted a false document to ICAS. Okay. He was caught and they said they would inform IRCC. Please, will this affect his PR application? He is not using any false document now. Olivia, you have to explain it. You have to tackle it head on. Yes, they have the ability to inform IRCC to look out for false documents, but you definitely have to treat this very seriously. It is not something to be taken lightly. And for your brother, obviously choosing to do that in the first place, there are always consequences. And anytime anyone makes a decision to submit a fraudulent document, the consequences could very well result in them forever being barred from Canada. Now, an application to ICAS for an educational credential assessment is not an application to immigration. But I can tell you that when you submit your application, they're going to seriously scrutinize your brother's application. And obviously you now have a valid ECA, I'm assuming, which is so strange because I don't know why he would have submitted a false document in the first place if he doesn't need one now. But the reality is you need to tackle it head on and explain it. And I never hide it. I never conceal it. I address it head on. And I basically say, I'm stupid. I should never have done that. I'm an idiot. And I take full responsibility. And now, please understand, everything is true and correct. And that's the best that you can do, Olivia. All right? Good question. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, Bapasha says, sir, what will happen to the PR who are willing to return to Canada in about 3 to 4 months? Boy, that is a question, Bapasha, that I don't think anybody can answer. Obviously, you have all the rights and privileges of a Canadian citizen, except the right to vote while you are a permanent resident in Canada. If you're asking about the economic situation in 3 to 4 months, oh, my friend, that's not something that I can answer. I know that it's not going to be business as usual. So understand that you really are going to need to want to have employment set up or have some ability to support yourself if you don't already have a job in Canada. And that's no different than any country where there might be restrictions. Okay, let's see who's next here. Huma says, when will an oath to take ceremony start again? That's another good question, Huma. Right now, as long as there's restrictions on the number of people that are gathering in large groups, like for example, Alberta, it's 15, as long as those restrictions are in place, the actual oath ceremony, we have not seen a willingness at this stage for people, for them to do that virtually. And I think a lot of you in Canada are now starting to see letters, and I wish I could show you the letter right now. I can open it up here. It's now people that are getting their, who are completing their landing, instead of getting issued confirmations of permanent residence in Canada, they're getting a letter from Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada that basically says, dear, whatever your name is, I am pleased to advise you that your application for permanent residence in Canada is now complete. Congratulations, with an exclamation mark. You are now a permanent resident of Canada, with another exclamation mark. And then it gives instructions for submitting your photo to the local office where the letter was issued from. And so that's what's happening in terms of permanent resident applications. They're actually doing this without need for in-person meetings. But for citizenship, we have not heard them that they're going to, at this stage, going to start doing that in some kind of a virtual realm. All right. Okay. Harinder says, can a PR travel without a PR card? No. Generally speaking, the answer is no. Now, in some cases, if you're coming from a country that doesn't require an ETA, which is basically the US, then maybe you could travel on your Canadian PR, on your US passport. But when it comes to individuals from visa required countries or virtually anywhere else, you have to apply for an electronic travel authorization, or you have to, and if you apply for an electronic travel authorization, it will ask you if you're a permanent resident or not, or it will see you are already a permanent resident and won't want to issue it. So for overseas permanent residents, you have to apply for a permanent resident travel document, a PRTD, through the consulate. So the answer is, in short, in general terms, is no. Okay, next one here. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, we've got a Periscope. All right, Just Courtney, great for you to tune in. This is great. So we've got, I love it when my Periscope people tune in. When do you think we'll be able to travel into Canada from the US? Okay, so this is the reality. If you're talking about just travel, like we're talking into June, when those orders in council restricting travel generally throughout all the world is into June. In May, later in May, our agreement with the US, that agreement will, well, we'll see what happens, whether it's going to be extended or not. But in all cases, this whole concept of discretionary and essential, well, basically non-discretionary, non-essential, boy, that is so complicated, isn't it? If you're seeking for a discretionary or optional purpose, is what I'm trying to say, not essential, then those requirements are still very much imposed, and the border officers will apply them. So if you're looking at just traveling on a holiday to Canada, we won't see any changes for for at least 2 to 3 weeks, and probably longer. It just depends on how those agreements with the U.S. are fully extended, or or whether or not they're actually make those changes to allow more more frequent border travel. But I don't know, Courtney, exactly what your purpose of travel is to Canada, but it's all based on the purpose and whether or not it's essential, whether or not it's for a non-discretionary or optional purpose. All of those things come into play right now. Okay. Okay, here's a good question. This one's from Rami. And Rami says, will they extend work permits for the people who got affected because of the virus? The reality is, Rami, they're not going to just give a blanket extension like some countries. I think Spain, maybe even Portugal, I can't remember. Some countries have just issued blanket extensions for anyone who's in the country and their temporary status is expiring. But for Canada, no. They say, look, you apply online, you submit your extension application. They're not just going to extend it just because of the virus. So you actually have to have a reason to do it. Okay, let's see here. Okay, why has Alberta stopped issuing NOIs to foreign workers, and what do you see the future for foreign workers hoping for AINP NOI? Well, the answer is pretty simple. If there are tons of Canadians out of jobs, the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program is going to take a very close look at those occupations, those industries, where before there were perceived shortages and now maybe there are not. With the unemployment rates that are sky high in Alberta right now because of the closure of many non-essential businesses, Alberta has taken a pause. They have slowed down on issuing these for obvious reasons. They want to figure out what the future holds. They have right now an intake queue that has a number of people in it, and they're just being cautious. So in terms of when, we just don't know when they're going to start issuing NOIs for Express Entry Stream. All right. Okay, here's one from Bala. And this is another really good question about travel. Okay, I'm a PR holder. All right, Bala. My wife is pregnant and I'm planning to invite my mother to help her on a visiting visa. My mother already has her visitor visa. Can she come for helping my wife? Okay, so this is where it comes down to this mysterious definition of what is considered to be discretionary or optional travel. So when it comes to caring for or helping a daughter, you have to make the pitch. In most cases, they will, well, it's so hard to even give you an explanation, Bala. What we look at really is humanitarian and compassionate factors. It's the only mechanism that I have to try to understand the discretion that the officers at the airport and what they're doing when they're trying to determine whether or not family members should be allowed to come in. And yes, your wife, your mother-in-law, your mother is a family member, and so to come in and help care for your wife. Well, what are some possible explanations? Well, maybe if there's complications with the pregnancy and you have to work and there's no one home to care for your wife, and obviously with the social distancing restrictions in place, there might be an argument that you could make. But at the end of the day, it's completely up to that last officer at the end of the day, because otherwise, if there's a TRV in place and it's a family member, it really comes of a permanent resident holder. The travel restrictions don't apply. It's the final imposition of whether or not this travel is deemed to be essential. Well, I keep using essential, non-discretionary, non-optional. Okay, what a mouthful. Like, why did they choose that? I don't know. Okay, okay, let's see here. Oh, here's a great question. Okay, so this one is Masood, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. And I think, guys, I'm going to actually end with this one. We're already over an hour. So Masood says, hello, Mark. My work permit is in process with a job offer from New Brunswick. Since New Brunswick has stopped entry, what happens to such cases, and do I need to talk to them proactively? Okay, Masood, you're going to be restrained from being able to come. So the processing of your application and everything is going to be delayed and pending New Brunswick lifting their entry requirements, their border closures. And so, like Susan identified, right now, there's some question as to the constitutionality of New Brunswick making that decision, given the fact that if immigration is a federal decision, and to outright bar foreign workers under their I'm trying to remember boy, some days my mind drifts away. Basically, the legislation related to pandemics. Sometimes the words just slip. I'm sure you guys can all post 100 on the list what I'm trying to say. But basically, the legislation that each province has in dealing with pandemics has authorized them to make these pretty harsh, blanket bars to entry. And so there's a question of, balance, the question of constitutionality of that. The balance of powers between province and the provincial government and the federal government. So be very curious to see what happens with this. All right, guys, I'm going to end it off there. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. A couple quick shout outs I want to give to everybody who came, who posted lots of questions, and I wasn't able to get to your questions. So I'm so sorry about that. Obviously, I try to do the best I can to reach as many people as possible, but inevitably, I'm going to be missing a few people. So this is Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, thanking you for being here today. Our third this week of live Q&As answering questions about immigration. If you have a question that you weren't able to get answered, or it's something that's actually quite specific in nature, then what I recommend is you actually go to, and you need help and you need guidance, then you can always go to my website here, Holthe Immigration Law, and when you're here, all you have to do is click on the Start Here button, and it will take you to the place where you can fill in just some few short, quick answers to determine what the nature of your query is, and then fill in the form, and you can book a paid consultation. So that right there is probably the best way to get your answers responded to and to get the direct help you need if it's something that is of a more specific nature, or if you have a question that I wasn't able to get to here within the live Q&A session. All right. Also, another reminder that remember, we have the Canadian Settlement Course private Facebook group. And so, so you can go here, search it up in Facebook, go here and request to join, and you can be added to this awesome little group. And this group is building up, and you can see I've got another 7 people who want to join. I just added people just at the beginning of the session. You can go here, and as long as you answer the questions properly, I will approve you. So people are, they're asking, I would like to learn more. They're asking realistic questions. No, I need job there. This one I'm going to actually decline because they haven't answered all the questions. And so this one I'll approve as well. Are you already in Canada? Have you received? Yes. Why do you want to join this group? Infos? That's a tough one. Okay, I'll add them. But the key here, and this person didn't answer all of them. So the key here is to make sure that it's real people who are actually requesting to join. All right, guys, I'll give you a shout out for that one. And then obviously, this all leads up to the ability for you to join the free webinar that I'm doing this Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can go right here to the Canadian Immigration Institute website. So CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com, click on Settlement Course, and it will take you right here to log in and register for the webinar. Make sure you leave me an awesome question. The last part of this intake form is what would you like to learn most about successfully settling? So do it. Answer it, because that is forming the basis for the course that I'm offering. I also want to share one other thing here that many of you probably aren't aware of, but those of you who are looking at immigrating to Canada, understand that I have a course. I have 2 right now. The most popular one is the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself. And so this guide, and I have to stop using guide because it's not a guide, it's an actual full course. This course is full of a ton of information that's all regarding every step of the Express Entry process from start to finish. And if you go through this, you'll see here the price. And for those who are watching this video now, if you click on Purchase Guide, the Lifetime Access, if you type in coupon code EEDIY50 and click Apply, you can get 50% off of this one-time access to the course, okay? So take advantage of that. That's there for you, and I always let people know at the end of the videos. Then, those of you who are wondering about job offers, I have a special LMIA course for high-wage positions. So if you have employers that are wondering, okay, how does this labor market impact assessment process work? What do I actually have to do? What are my obligations? Right here, this course is designed specifically for them. So point those employers to here, where when they purchase the course, They get information on everything, the basics of the foreign worker program, recruiting and advertising tips, preparing and submitting the application, and one of the most important parts, employer compliance obligations. So check it out. There's a bunch of information here. I've got a video related to it, and this one is $300 US. Okay, always 30-day money-back guarantee. If you decide, hey, I'm going to check the course out, and then you say, oh, this stuff sucks, which of course it's not. It's awesome. You can get your money back without question. All right, guys. This is Mark Holthe, once again, Canadian immigration lawyer, broadcasting from his home in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. Wishing you guys safety, health, wellness, just all of the protection that you need as we navigate this crazy world that we call COVID-19. Take care.